We are live here on Park Right Here podcast with Tom and Katrina. Today we have two wonderful people that I met at an APDA conference.
What's APDA?
Oh, American Parkinson's Disease Association.
Bingo.
I am a board member of the Virginia chapter for the Western Appalachia part of Virginia. This is Sadie. I'm gonna butcher your last name, which
it's Natour.
Natour, and Mr. Trey the third over here. And they were so nice and so good to us from me and the other ladies. And that was my first event, and I just had to have them on the podcast. So they work with DBS for Boston Scientific. So we'll get to know them more, and I'm going to hand it over to Tom.
Hello, everyone. Again, this is Tom, and I want to introduce the game we play, How Many Tangents. But before we start, I got to give you my little daily message.
You're right. We don't need directions. Maybe you'll find a shortcut.
Okay, because I'm a man, so I have to play that because, women are much smarter than I am. But I just want to say thank you guys. And as I was mentioning earlier, you have a service that I hope I'll never have to make use of. But if I do, it's good to know there are people like you out there. So that's pretty much my story at this point. See, 9 years in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
13,
yeah.
13. Ooh, and I got the devil horns, though. I got the devil horns enough.
And I had the devil horns, but it's not from DBS. It was just born that way.
Yeah, I've lost so much weight. You can actually see my wires now. Ugh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it feels weird.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've lost like 60 pounds.
One of the things we did before, I do some advocacy work for Michael J. Fox, and we talked to our the staff of our congresswoman and our 2 U.S. senators, and we were supposed to tell them just like, give us 5 minutes about who you are, how Parkinson's affected your life. And so I decided to go last. In all cases, I kind of said, well, my Parkinson's story is, of course, there's a common thread, but it's different than everyone else's because it affects us individually. But if someone I knew recently had DBS, and she sent me an x-ray of her head, so you could see everything, you guys. And so what I did to them is I told them I'm going to email this to them, but I just want you to have your congressperson or senator put this little Xerox or copy in their briefcase. And when someone says they don't want to support Parkinson's research, just take out the skull and say, this is what you're not supporting. And it's sad and it's good that you have it, but it's also sad that that's one of the things we have to look forward to down the road is, becoming part of the board collective.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah. And we were saying earlier, every Parkinson's patient is so different with their disease progression and their treatment and kind of like their path moving forward. All of those things are so different. So if you ask most neurologists, they'll tell you if you've seen one Parkinson's patient, then you've seen one Parkinson's patient because the trajectory is so different. But my
neurologist said if you see one Parkinson's patient, I've seen too many, but I think it was just referring to me.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've heard that one too.
Yeah, it's like Mike. He's my second cousin on the other side of the railroad tracks. He was born and raised in that house over there. Yeah, if you ever want to hear hillbilly, that would be Mr. Keith. He has Parkinson's as well, but he got it, later in life, and he is like completely. He was diagnosed right when we moved here, so it'd be 3 years now, and he had to quit work, and his left side he just had really bad tremors, and it's sad. And he has to go about 2.5 hours for treatment because there's just no treatment out here. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So,
the laterality is a big aspect too. Like you said, some people present very unilaterally, and then some people really present bilaterally very quickly and early on. Yeah.
I was luckily for a long time.
Does bilaterally mean I'm fluent in Parkinson's on both sides?
Yes. That's what it means.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's stage 1 to 2. And then after that, it's like if you need anything to help you walk.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. I think that's kind of arbitrary, but
So this is always, I thought, the sort of the pathway of Parkinson's is you get diagnosed after a few years, your tremors or whatever get a little bit worse. They start on carbidopa, levodopa. After a period of time of taking the carbidopa, levodopa, that can introduce the dyskinesia. And once dyskinesia get to a point that it's more of a personal decision that you can go in and have the deep brain DBS surgery, which is, you guys can better explain it, but putting little electric probes into your brain and kind of zapping those bad cells to override what they're doing. And that gives you, most everyone I've talked to that had it said this, it changed their life. Maybe one or two said for the negatively, but for the majority of it, I mean, it's like everyone who swears by it just absolutely swears by it.
Yeah, I mean, DBS really can be a super life-changing operation for a lot of people. Like you said, that's kind of how it starts out is your on-off, like you said, when you're first diagnosed, your on-off periods are pretty infrequent. And that's when the physician will usually put you on levodopa. And then at some period of time, you still have pretty predictable on-off periods, but they're much more frequent. And that's usually when the dosing of levodopa increases, along with the side effects, like you said, dyskinesias.
Well, in my case, I can see with this graph that I have on a program, I can see where I take my meds, and then my on time starts to go up, and then it hits that peak, and then it goes down, and it goes up, it goes down, it goes up. So what I've done is my own sort of Ritari, is that I now take 6 Cinemeds a day. So I take one every 2.5 hours. And I'm trying to just take a little bit throughout the day so I can sort of, instead of that line going like this, up and down, it's going more like this.
More steady.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people about DBS too, is the two things that DBS can do in general is that it kind of sets you back in your disease progression. So like when you think about the times where your on-off periods were less frequent and more predictable, DBS can do that for you. But then it also can do exactly what you're explaining, is kind of flatten the curve. If you have a really robust on-off curve where it's very, very prominent when your on periods stop and your off periods are getting worse and worse, then DBS can really help with that. The one thing that they try to keep an eye out for is if the disease progresses so much that the levodopa is almost less responsive, like it's a little less predictable whether levodopa will actually make an impact on your on-off. That's when it becomes harder and harder to consider DBS as an option. So there is a little bit of a window of opportunity with DBS. But that's kind of what DBS, the overall concept of DBS does.
Right. And I try to explain to people, I like to use like the balance. Like right now, if your body's producing enough dopamine, then your body's in balance. But as you progress with the Parkinson's, your brain's producing less and less dopamine, which means you have to take more and more medication. It's not so much that the medication is becoming ineffective, as the fact that your body needs X amount of medication. And it's almost like, dope X minus whatever dopamine your body's producing equals how much more that you need. And so it's kind of as you age into it a little bit, levodopa is working the same. It's not better or worse. It's just less of it in your system. And then that's what my doctor said to me recently. Well, you want to have tremors or dyskinesia? Because it's kind of like with the medication, which one is better? And I'm like, neither one. Yeah. But he said, well, I wish it was the case. But so in my case right now, I'm taking a little bit less Cinemet for the hopes that I'll have a little more tremors and over the period of time have less dyskinesia.
Yep. Yeah, and that definitely makes logical sense. Yeah, and I mean that's like really the whole heart of Parkinson's disease is the dopamine production, and that's what levodopa does for you. And then like you have all these neurons in your brain, like millions and millions of neurons, and every neuron has an axon and then dendrites. And dendrites kind of take the neurotransmitter that the axon is sending, and that neurotransmitter is dopamine. And so I always tell, and not that you guys wanted to attend science class today.
No, we do need to attend science class.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So basically, the role of the dopamine is to facilitate that firing, those communications that are happening between neurons.
So you
And-
saying neurotransmitter, that's the way the brain is transmitting its signals to the body.
That's the way the neurons are communicating with other neurons.
Mhm.
So, and you have millions and millions of them in your brain, and in order for them to communicate, there has to be that neurotransmitter of dopamine occurring.
Mhm. So when I
And-
start doing this, it's equivalent to saying my neurotransmitters aren't transmitting as well as they should be because there's lack of them.
Exactly. And so the first way to facilitate that is to just help the dopamine production, which is basically what levodopa, your Cinemet, that's what that does. Is it
Mhm.
it helps you produce more dopamine, and then those neurons can be facilitated to communicate with each other.
Mhm.
The other way that we can kind of assist with those neurons communicating with each other is electricity. And that's what DBS is. And so
Yeah.
those neurons, when they're communicating and that communication happens between them, it's actually electricity that occurs in between them.
Sure.
And so I always tell people like,
It's like a
you know,
shock collar for the brain.
yeah. Yeah, so you always start off attacking the disease by using dopamine, by helping facilitate that dopamine pathway. But then usually DBS patients will also facilitate it using electricity. And then those two things in combo, you can kind of tweak one, you can tweak the other. It's like kind of a combo way of attacking the disease.
Yeah.
Definitely. I definitely agree. So, Sadie, what got you into being a pharmaceutical rep and then DBS?
Yes, so I think that medicine and biology has always been one of the few things I genuinely want to know, like everything about. It's just always been what I love learning about. So when I got into college, studied biomedical engineering and biology.
Wow.
I call myself a pre-med dropout. So I was like, oh, I don't know. This is kind of a lot of school to do both. That's kind of a lot. So when I first graduated from UVA, I went and worked for some companies doing the brain and spinal cord monitoring and mapping
Wow.
during surgery. And actually, what really got me interested in DBS was when I got to shadow one of my neurosurgeons in a DBS procedure. She was like, "Hey, Steve, like, can you do like the monitoring, kind of electrical recording that we do during surgery?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is, but I can try." So she invited me into the OR, and I got to see a live DBS procedure. And I said, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." I've seen awake brain surgeries before. I've seen a lot, but this was different. And it was history ever since. When I saw that Trey needed a new clinical specialist, I was like, "Yes, please. let me on the team, Trey." And that's
what
what
I always find amazing is how people end up where they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said, you shadowed that neurosurgeon, and if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be here today.
I wouldn't have known it was a thing.
Yeah.
So you had like no connection with the Parkinson's community until you
not until I got into DBS, and then I really started to look into the community outreach portion of DBS. I think that's something that's very unique to us as medical device reps, is that we get to have a lot more patient interaction than somebody who's, let's say, doing a hip replacement or a shoulder, and all I do is bring in my screws and I give them to the surgeon and that's it. For us, we really get to be there, hand in hand with our patients, sometimes preoperatively kind of counseling, and they have questions throughout the procedure. We're there with them in the OR. A lot of times we do it awake. Sometimes we do it asleep. We're there with our patients. A lot of people like that. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd rather be awake or asleep. It's like I can see benefits of both, but part of me is just put me to sleep. Let me know when it's over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe put me to sleep and let me sleep for 5 years, then wake me up. I can use a good long nap.
Or we do the put them to sleep and then wake me up when all the drilling and all the weird stuff is done. And then you're kind of just sitting there.
You know what I saw once that it was a friend of mine. We were doing a Zoom call and he had DBS surgery and he wanted to show us what he looked like when he turned it off. And when he's on, he's kind of like this, and then he turned it off and he's like the fish out of water thing. And I'm like yelling at him through the thing, Randy, turn it back on. For God's sake, I can't see you. And it's just amazing what that little system can do for somebody. I was at a symposium and this one woman it was amazing because the doctor asked her to come up and she literally stood up and had her daughter turn off the program. And she went from this to she became like a solid oak tree. She couldn't. And then her daughter turned it back on and she came, I don't want to use this wrongly, but like she came back to life. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking up to her saying, we do this podcast. I have to have you on the podcast. I have to let the world see you and what you're doing and how, just because anybody could go up on the stage and do that, it's inspirational. And, gives people not hope per se, but makes you feel like you're not alone out there.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. We had somebody on last week. We had Larry Gifford and he had just recently had it about a year ago. He's in his first year and it was life-changing. And on our YouTube channel, I have little shorts of before and after. Before I was walking in on a walker and I had been for about a year and I danced coming out. And it was kind of funny because they overstimulated it, as they were tweaking it and then first turning it up. And I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. It was like really weird. And then, of course, my husband, who would get Tom very well. He's a jokester, too. He's like, hey, Dr. Graybert, how do I do that at home?
There's a difference between joke and humor. I got to make sure everyone's aware of that. I don't do jokes. I do humor. Yeah, it's more of an intellectual interaction.
Well, yeah, Jim's the same way. He calls what the off periods in the evenings. He calls that mean downers.
So, you guys had mentioned that you work with the patient, if that's the right word. Mm-hmm. But is that a long-term relationship that you develop with them, or is it? So if I get the Boston Scientific, monitoring system in 2 years, 3 years, assuming you're still there, I'm reaching out to you or working with you on the programming, or does that go over to the neurologist at some point?
So the neurologist will mostly handle the programming, but there's so many like little questions that might pop up or little day-to-day items that you might have questions about. So what Sadie and I always try to do is just be the, kind of their go-to. Mm-hmm. If they have any questions like how to use the remote or why is this going on with my system? How do I make this adjustment? So yeah, the actual programming sessions will happen with neurology, but in between those, you'd be surprised at how many little things pop up. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, we just try to make ourselves available for anything like that.
So is there, when you do the setting, there's like a range of settings that you can do, and each setting either adds a little more or takes a little more electricity out. Is that the gist of what it is?
There's several different parameters of the electricity, but the one that is most impactful from a DBS patient's perspective is amplitude. And so mm-hmm. at the programming, what they'll do is they'll give you a range of amplitude that you can use.
When you say amplitude, can you tell us what amplitude means? This is the science part of it.
Yeah. So amplitude is the amount of current that mm-hmm. the device is delivering to the brain. And a normal amount of current would be somewhere in the range of 2.5 to maybe 3 something milliamps. Some people are higher, some people are lower. That's just kind of the physiology, anatomy side of it. So yeah, the physician will give a range that the patient can go up to or down to. And anything further than that will have to be done at their next programming visit.
Where do you see AI coming into play, if at all, with the programming aspect?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. So yeah, one of the things that we're working on at Boston Scientific is something along those lines. Traditionally, when you get DBS programming, it's a little bit of, I don't want to call it guesswork, but it's a little bit of playing Battleship, because what the neurologist has to do is they have to find the right contact on the lead. And so when I say lead, the wire that they implant into your brain has 4 different spots on it that you can adjust and tweak and play with. And then those 4 different spots, you can adjust the parameters and settings for.
And each different spot interacts with a different part of the brain.
Exactly, because it's implanted in the brain, so you have different opportunities at different depths along the wire to change the settings. And so when you break it down, there's really millions of different combinations of settings that you could put a patient on.
Sure.
The possibilities are pretty much unlimited. And so the 2 big things that we've been working on are one is called image guided programming, where you can bring in the imaging from the surgery into the programming. And that's useful because it's a lot less guesswork. It's a lot less playing battlefield, because if you know where the leads are at by looking at the imaging, you have a really good starting point for where.
It's not like I say B6 and you say hit or miss, and then
yeah. Exactly. And then the second thing is to automate that. Since we have the data, since we have the images, and since we know where the best spot in the brain is, we can let intelligence make those decisions for us.
Well, my son works for Google AI, and he has a master's in artificial intelligence. And one of the things I ask him about is, why don't I see more AI in Parkinson's? And his point was in the sense that the database isn't large enough. And because, it sounds like, and that's sometimes with medication, why is the med so high? Because there's not enough people out there using the meds. And do you find that kind of true in your AI research, that there's more of a smaller set of individuals you can study with the AI, and it's not a large collective group?
I think that's part of it. I mean, if you look at how many patients are implanted with DBS as a whole, it's lots. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of patients, but there's so many different models of devices out there and iterations of devices. Really, the devices that have come out over the past, I would say 4 to 5 years, are leaps and bounds better in technology than the ones that were implanted a while ago.
So let's say 10 years ago, I had DBS through Boston Scientific. I could go in today with the new technology and basically you pull it out and put new ones in. Is that a fair description, or that's just doesn't even come close?
So the leads they like to keep in place. I mean, it would be a risky proposition to take leads out and put new leads in. Right. And so usually when leads are in, they kind of stay in for a while.
You just don't pluck them out.
Yeah, exactly. Now the battery can be upgraded and exchanged, and we have experienced a lot of that. Like older patients wanting to get the new technology, they upgrade to our newest model. And the newest model does provide a lot of the features that we've just been talking about.
So it's kind of like the hardware doesn't change. It's just the software, if you will, that's programming the hardware changes for the better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And can you also explain, also, I know because I have 2 separate systems. So the batteries themselves, some are, you can are chargeable, and then some are replaceable. And I think mine was 5 to 8 years or something like that. So
yep.
Can you tell our audience the difference between the 2?
Yeah. So, I mean, the big difference is, you hit the nail on the head, is that there's something called a primary cell battery, which is just a battery that is like your normal everyday battery that you would think of. It has energy, stores energy, but then when it depletes enough energy, it basically dies. And then it would be time to get a replacement or a new battery. Alternatively, there's also rechargeable batteries, which is a large portion of what we at Boston Scientific do. The rechargeable battery is a little bit smaller than the PC, because you can be smaller when you don't have to maintain this huge amount of energy in one piece of hardware. But then also the patient does have to charge, usually once every week or once every 2 weeks.
Do they just put a little thing in their head and plug it into the wall?
No. It used to be like that, or not your head, but you used to have to plug into the wall to charge it. Now we
Wow.
have a wireless charger. It uses induction technology, so it's like a very simplistic looking device. It's a piece of plastic with one button on it. Yeah,
right.
Sadie's got one.
And
Right
it's
here.
one of these little things.
And that one button, you push it, and it starts looking for the battery. And when it finds the battery, it just links up and it charges your device wirelessly through your skin.
What's the distance that you have to be the charger? I mean, do you have to lay it right on top of it, or you can just keep?
Yeah, so it's got to be on top of your skin. And then when we do the actual implant, we make sure that it's under 2 centimeters of a distance. So from battery to charger, it needs to be 2 centimeters or less. And we've never really had an issue with it. And so we just tell patients to put it in their little device thing and put it on their chest and charge up every week.
Get a little piece of Velcro on the back of it in your chest and just Velcro it on.
Yeah. We do have adhesion pads, which are kind of like sticky little gel pads that can do that.
That's wild.
You guys use the magnet to connect to the wirelessly to for the doctor's appointments.
Yep. So there's 2 ways with ours that you can connect to the programmer. One is via the magnet, like you mentioned. You just put a magnet over it, and then you can connect, and that maintains a safe, secure connection. The other one is via the remote. So every patient has a unique remote that's specifically linked to their device. So you can use that remote to make programming changes.
So when you treat somebody with Parkinson's with the DBS, does it matter where the Parkinson's came from? Is environmentally or DNA related or environmental related? Does that make any difference, or is Parkinson's just Parkinson's?
It matters in the sense of target selection. So there's more than one target in the brain that they can put these wires in.
Okay.
And so what they do when they decide on, patient A, patient B, like what's the right target for each patient, they look at the symptoms that they're displaying. That's really the number one concern. And then they start also thinking about a lot of other factors, including there's like usually a neuropsych exam that you have to pass and a couple other tests that your physician will give you. And they take all of that data into consideration when they think about the target selection.
Yes, I find that interesting in the sense that I'm 65 and I was in the Army when I was 18 in 1977, and I spent 4 months at Fort McClellan, Alabama, which subsequently was closed down due to base realignment, but it also had found to have high levels of toxic waste. And after 5 years, a VA just found for me with 100% disability. Well, they didn't say it didn't say that Fort McClellan caused it. It was kind of like one of those, I'm guilty, but I'm not saying I'm guilty.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to have a Camp Lejeune.
So I was just more curious, someone like myself who doesn't have any DNA markers, but has an environmental background that may have contributed or caused it. From your perspective, does that make any difference?
Not from the device perspective.
Parkinson's is Parkinson's.
Yeah. I think it's more concerning the symptoms that you're exhibiting. So the 4 cardinal symptoms of Parkinson's are what DBS can help with. There's a lot of secondary symptoms of Parkinson's, but the big ones that DBS can help with are tremor, bradykinesia,
Dystonia.
The dystonia, and then postural instability, balance.
God, you just sort of identified me. Those are symptoms. I'm more tremor based.
And this is my magnet.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
I'm not going to say. I'll wait till the other line. the other. I won't say the name of mine, but but there are 3 main pharmaceutical companies that do DBS throughout the country. Is it just you 3?
Yep. So in the United States, it's just 3 of us. It's us, Boston Scientific, Medtronic, and Abbott. These are the three companies that manufacture DBS devices.
Which one does more in Virginia? I know it's not Abbott.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really
Personally.
depends on region. And it depends on whether you're talking about new patients or patients that are getting replacements and that type of thing. But yeah, I think all of us have a pretty respectable mix in Virginia. And probably, I would say nationwide, it's similar too.
Okay.
Not that we're influencers, but you get our little park right here thumbs up.
Yeah.
You're the first ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that we try to emphasize too is like, we think that patients should just advocate for what they feel like is the best for them. And so
That's the
like,
George Costanza theory right there.
yeah. 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 So, I mean, we usually talk about the differences between the devices, but then we also point them to our website just to kind of learn about the differences and educate themselves. And if your physician has a preference on one or the other, then just learn about why. And yeah, like that's kind of the approach that we take. We don't try to, do a big, huge commercial.
Yeah.
That's what I like about you guys. I mean, it was just, the way we met, it was over dinner and, and that was fun. I mean, that food, whew.
Oh yeah.
It was really good.
Because I grew up in, my family is from the southwestern part of Virginia, and you guys were out in Roanoke, and we're finally, you guys are, I would say the medical community is finally coming west in Virginia. We're kind of the forgotten part of Virginia at times, but it's really cool because who was the one doctor works at Carillion, the neurosurgeon that's going to be with Dr. Lee?
Yeah, so Dr. Witcher is the neurosurgeon at Carillion, and like you said, Dr. Lee is going to be the neurologist there.
And he's my doctor at UVA, University of Virginia, right now. He for the DBS clinic. So it's just really awesome to see that's moving out there. But how else do you guys reach people and let people know what you're doing and what is coming? Like, is there anything big coming up?
Mm-hmm.
I know some of the new batteries are lasting longer. Even since I had it 3 years ago. So what kind of new technologies? And are you guys leaning more toward the robot DBS are there? What is it? Is it ATN or STN or you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll tackle that one first, I guess. So that's really the big debate is target selection. The two big targets for Parkinson's disease are STN and GPI. And each one has their benefits, and there's tons and tons of research on why this one is the best or better and why they're equivalent. So I don't think the companies really take an approach on like this target is better than the other. I think that
what are the differences?
The differences?
Yeah, explain the differences. And kind of like what they, is it the positioning of the different on the wire, or is it amplitude, or what's the?
Yeah. Those are all part of it. So the STN is a very, very small structure. Usually the STN is really only about 5 or 6 millimeters long. And so you're talking about if you're 1 millimeter off in any direction, it makes a really impactful difference on how good the outcomes can be. The GPI is a little bit bigger of a target, but it also comes with its own challenges. And so all of these things are things that surgeons think about when they think about taking their approach to get the lead in the right spot. We've had great experience with all targets, but that's just a little bit of the thought process that goes into a neurosurgeon's mind when he's trying to determine, patient selection, which patient would be best for which target. And the other things that I mentioned, like the neuropsych exam and all of the physician evaluations, all of that goes into one big basket of them trying to pick which target would be right specifically for you.
When I first applied for long-term disability years ago, I had to take the neuropsych test, and it was very interesting because it's like he kept asking me the same questions over and over again, and basically registering the difference in my response time and my answers. And it was done over a full day, but it was a very intense test. And I remember reaching out to my primary when I first said I need this, and just try to get an idea. And he goes, "Tom, don't try to cheat. I'll figure it out." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, me?"
Oh no.
Yeah.
So with that being said, do you find that some patients try to game the system to get the DBS surgery, or mostly everyone at that point, they're not trying to, I mean, if the neurologist says it's a good fit, it's a good fit. If it's not a good fit, do you find those people maybe trying to game it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think not. But all I usually do, if that question comes up, is like, hey, should I do this or should I do that? How should I prepare for the neuropsych? I just tell them, look, like,
Because I just imagine somebody getting to the
Study
point
for it.
that they think they need it, and turns out they're told no. I mean, I can only imagine how that would impact them.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, but that's what it's there for, like as a filter, you know. And if DBS isn't the right fit because of one of those filters, like neuropsych, then, you know, we always say, like, you should probably trust in that decision. And then there's always other options down the road.
Yeah.
And
one of which is focus ultrasound. You guys have any opinion on that? I mean, if you did a focus ultrasound, does that preclude you from doing DBS later? Or
it doesn't necessarily. We like to think that the patient population for ultrasound is a little bit different than the patient population for DBS. There is some crossover.
Yeah, like essential tremors being the focus ultrasound seems to be the way for that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's several things too, because there are some essential tremor patients that are better DBS patients than there are ultrasound patients, but those are just very minor things. And it's also a matter of patient preference. But to directly answer your questions, like, we've had multiple patients go through the focus ultrasound, and after a couple years, maybe the effects have faded off a little bit, and they come back and get DBS. And those patients we've done a pretty good job with.
Oh, good, because I hear a lot of people say if you get the focus ultrasound, that precludes you from DBS. So I belong to a couple support groups where people post questions and the support group answers them. And that's one of the ones I generally reply back to, saying, my understanding, it doesn't necessarily preclude you, but that's a conversation you should have with your neurologist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
There's a lot of labeling. There's a lot of, like, the FDA gets involved in a lot of, like, labeling conversations and things that you can say and you can't say. So there are some things along those lines, but from what we've seen, we have seen patients that have undergone ultrasound that have gone on to get DBS, and it's been pretty successful for them.
Yeah, kind of one of those little minor tangents I go off on. I've always found it interesting that on these support groups, someone will post a question like that. And although I appreciate the opportunity to give them some insight, you should really be talking to your doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think different neurosurgeons will tell you different things too. You know, I don't think there's a clear consensus one way or the other. So that's something that definitely certain neurosurgeons might be more comfortable with than others. And
yeah, I know with the robotic, you know, I know that's kind of a, you know, it's not as prevalent. I mean, I know they don't do it at UVA yet. And that's what I got done, or I had done, excuse me, proper English here, in Colorado. But Dr. Vansickle was actually kind of what you're he was a biomedical or biochemical PhD, and then became a doctor, and then became a neuro. I mean, yeah, he is one of the smartest men I've ever met, and he actually he does it for epilepsy, and he has a patent on a device for epilepsy, and he is the major robotic surgeon DBS wise in the country, or in the world, from what I understand, or what I've been told by other people. He won't tell you that, but you know, my doctor who worked with him, my Dr. Graybert in Colorado Springs, worked with him for like 10 years. And yeah, so how is that different from the awake procedure? And is that coming down the pike or more, or have you seen more of it or less of it? Or
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of big trends going on in DBS, and robotics is one of them. There's huge advancements in imaging. So like if you go back even 7 or 8 years, they were trying to keep almost all patients awake and do microelectrode recording to confirm the placement of the leads. And that's in a prior lifetime, that's what I used to do, is microelectrode recording. But the imaging has gotten so good over the past couple of years, along with the placement devices, like you're talking about robotics. I mean, there's just so much innovation going on in that field that there is a big move to offering the procedure in a bunch of different type of formats, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so there's a large percentage of DBS cases that are going on now that can be done asleep. And there's a good amount of cases that are also done where you can get the leads and the battery kind of in one setting instead of staging it out in multiple procedures.
Well, it almost reminds you of going to the eye doctor earlier, like better, worse, better, worse. It's when you're awake, they're asking you, they're moving things around. Is that better or worse? I don't.
Yeah. And when they were keeping patients awake, that was the rationale and the reasoning behind it, is that they wanted to receive those recordings to confirm that they were in a good place, but they also wanted feedback from the patient. They wanted them to show their tremor in real time in the operating room. Imaging has gotten so good now, especially for a couple of the targets, you can know for sure where you've put the lead. Right then and there, and also after the procedure to help with programming. So we talked about the image guided programming, some of the stuff that we're working on, but I think it all kind of comes together. It all kind of works together with each other for, down the road for that patient quality of life.
And also the because I know they actually anesthetized me for my MRI. Before surgery. And so they could, I guess that's to make sure, and that was fine with me because I hate MRIs. But speak of MRIs, what are the other things you have to be careful with DBS afterwards, like MRIs, going through security,
skydiving.
Skydiving, but the metal detectors. Sorry, had a Parkinson's word finding moment. that kind of like what are some of the pros, cons, or things you got to watch out for? Be careful.
So the big thing is just be aware or let everybody around you know that you have the medical device. So if you go in to get an MRI, everybody knows what procedures you need to follow to safely get that MRI. The other thing is any type of device with a really strong magnetic field. The one that we hear about is like arc welders. So arc welder machines, if you're ever getting surgery and they're going to use electrocautery, you want to make sure that they don't do that anywhere near the battery. Those are the two big things. Other than those things, most DBS patients can not worry about too many other like interference type things with their DBS.
Does like the metal detectors at like at airports or that kind of thing? I know they told me to be careful with that. They give me a little ID card that I can.
Yeah, so we always tell people like let them know, notify them, and they'll send you in the other line. But that being said, those machines at the airport use very similar technology as like the theft detectors at like your everyday grocery store. And neither of those I've found to really cause any big issues or interference with the device. It's kind of just like a theoretical thing. Like if you looked in our paperwork, it would say like, hey, watch out for this. But most of my patients are fine walking through a grocery store.
Unless you're like standing in the metal detector for like 20, 30 minutes, an hour, like.
Oh, hold on. You guys keep going. On the podcast.
And the crazy thing is, every time I go through security,
That's my
it sets
son.
off the security, so I have to get patted down.
Sorry, my son is moving moving next door to. I bought the property next door.
Oh,
I'm gonna be a grandma in December.
nice.
Wow, congrats.
Gosh.
Oh, my first one. Oh. So, yes, that was my son. So anyway, they're having to replace lines and do. Okay, come say hi, John.
Hi, John.
These for Jazz.
Okay,
Hey.
this is my son,
I'm
John.
the one that named this.
Yeah, he named the podcast.
Oh, wow, nice.
And
Ma.
this
Sucking
is
down the
Tom.
Gatorade?
Yeah, it's from my wife. She's prego.
Oh, okay, that's good. It's always good to say your wife is prego. Probably you don't want to say that, or she looks fat in that dress. Two things you never want to say.
He'd say it anyway. I have a millennial, and my daughter's 17, a Zoomer, Generation Z. Whew. Life is never dull. And now I can, just right across the yard. But they have to fix a lot of stuff today. But anyway.
When you talk about the robotics and such, I'm just more curious because Parkinson's generation, if you will, we're generation old. I don't think they came up with letter back then. But do you find that elderly patients are worried or they don't understand the technology and they're probably more apt to do the old-fashioned surgery? But I wonder if that's any hindrance to it because I'm a big tech geek.
Yeah. I personally haven't found that. I mean, I think that it's usually more about the relationship with your surgeon and your doctor and you just knowing why that's the selection that they made and being comfortable with them being comfortable with it, I guess.
When we talk about relationships, I like to that's my doctor. Women, as you can see.
Okay.
And we were at a symposium, and the little sign I have says, "I'm with stupid." And it's pointing at him. And he has one that's pointing at me that says, "I'm with stupid."
Aww.
So, we talk about relationships, and that's one of the things I tell people when you're first diagnosed. You need to find a great neurologist, somebody you can trust, somebody that you have confidence in, because that person becomes pretty much next to your caregiver. That person is the second most important person in your life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, the two big things we hone on are that is when you're diagnosed, find you a good movement disorder neurologist. And the second thing is exercise.
Support group.
Oh, yeah.
What are our 5 things? Support group, exercise,
Diet.
MDS, diet.
And we got to make a plug. I do this plug every time. This is the book on Parkinson's, How to Reduce Symptoms Through Exercise. When it's on Amazon, you can get it and have it delivered probably in 2 days. So how to reduce symptoms through exercise. That was my paid plug. I just made $1.50. But yeah, that was one of the things, like she said, that I preach to people. You got to find a great neurologist. You got to find a good support group. You got to start eating healthier, and you got to start exercising. And those things will, especially the exercise, because that's been shown to delay the progression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's something.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's something I talk about with DBS too, is I look at DBS as another way to get you feeling better holistically. So you're able to participate more fully in your Parkinson's therapies and your physical therapy and your exercise. If you're having more stable on time for longer periods throughout the day, that's really what I look at DBS for, is just improved quality of life so you can participate more fully in your exercise programs.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because when people talk about when should I get DBS, it's not a question of more when, like a date. It's like at some point where you need a better quality of life, and you've done everything you can, and the quality of life is suffering. That's, I think, the time you start the conversation with having DBS.
Exactly. And I think for some people that might be 3 years after diagnosis and, they're starting to get the fluctuations in on time. For some people that might be 10 years after
Yeah.
their diagnosis. Everybody's an individual, everybody's different. And once you talk to your doctor and you kind of determine that you are a DBS candidate, you can stay in that window of opportunity for, a good amount of time. It's not like, oh, I'm a candidate, I have to get implanted today. I have to get implanted in a month. You can be a DBS candidate. We don't want to let you go too far to where you're not levodopa responsive or, you start getting the cognitive declines with aging and everything like that. But once you determine that you are a DBS candidate, you can stay in that window of opportunity for a good amount of time as well.
Good. That's good to hear because this is obviously it's brain surgery. There's an expression, it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery. Well, it's brain surgery.
This is.
Yeah.
This is. And it for me, it was a quality of life issue. It was, and I think that's with everything. When to start taking medicine. I mean, when you're first diagnosis, when do I start levodopa? And to me, it's like, the quality of life issue. Don't wait until, it's not going to work. And DBS is just the way I felt. And I'm so happy that I did because, I got to go back to stage 1 for a while. And I sometimes, both sides are involved but most of the time stage 1. So from 3 to 1 and I would not want to go back.
I got to ask you guys, and I used the word. Oh, go ahead, Katrina.
I just want to do the plug for Every Victory Counts is a really good Davis Finney on their website, and it has everything. It tells a lot about DBS, and it has a DBS stories from patients as well. So definitely, we almost call this the Bible. And then this is the separate one for the care partners.
Right.
That's that plug. So I've hit APDA. Okay. Hit everybody now. But yeah.
APDA. It's like YMCA.
Oh, A. D. I don't know which way that would be.
One of the things we try to do with this show as well is, in a sense, make somebody laugh, because if you have Parkinson's and you're laughing, or if you have cancer and you're laughing, at that moment in time, your day isn't as bad as it could be. Just laughter is so much
The best medicine, definitely, and that's.
I like to say I'm a lightning rod for stupidity. If I can be stupid and do something to get the crowd going, then I'm in. I'm an instigator. I want to start things and then just see how it develops. But I do have your technical nerd question. I use the word nerd as a statement of excellence. You remember the movie 2001 Odyssey?
I don't know it.
Oh my God! So there goes. Okay, never mind. For those in the listening audience, there was a movie called 2001 Odyssey, and in the movie there was a computer called HAL. It was like AI, and the question is, why did they name it HAL? Because if you look at the alphabet, the letter that comes after HAL is IBM, and that was your geek trivia question of the day.
Okay.
Well, of course, that just went. Because you guys are young.
Yeah, you guys, and that's a great thing. I've also noticed a lot.
Go ask your father what that means, and he'll probably tell you.
It's with Davis Finney and APDA. There's a lot of millennial. I guess me and Tom would say Gen X. I'm young onset. He says he's a tweener because he was in his 50s when he was diagnosed, so he's kind of in between the young onset and.
Yep, I'm a tweener. And and it's awesome. So I know we heard Sadie's Trey. What really got you involved, and did you know anybody who had Parkinson's, or did this just fall into your lap?
So later on in my life, I did. But I think one of the reasons why Sadie and I work so well together is we have similar backgrounds. I also was a biomedical engineer in college, And I did some lab work there, was always very interested in the brain. And my first job was a company called Alpha Omega, who does the microelectrode recording that I was talking about for DBS procedures. So early on in my career, I was in a lot of DBS cases, and I was learning about the different DBS targets and all of these things going on in the brain. And then this opportunity kind of came across. I was learning of Boston Scientific releasing their big U.S. launch, because they were launched over in Europe, but not in the U.S. And then I came over here, and I took the plunge, and I've been with Boston Scientific ever since.
That's great.
That's really, I mean, because I just find it fascinating how millennials like really, I mean, because I mean, a lot of nonprofits are run by them as well. APDA, you know,
Yep.
Most of them are youngins too, as I call them. So it's, I mean, it's awesome that you guys do this. And I found you guys, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you guys were not just because you took us out to dinner, but just you seem more easier to get, you know, just to talk to. And I can see that you really care about the patients and the because one thing, and I noticed and helped me was having the representatives there, because they were easier access than the, you know, sometimes than the neurologist. So the reps really helped me. And like because they just updated, because they use iPhones and iPods. The other the one that I got, so they upgraded, and the reps helped me, you know, at the APDA conference, and help me upgrade, and just I saw that with you guys too. So I just wanted to, you know, say thank you, and I really enjoyed getting to know you guys.
Yeah, likewise. Thank
Going
you.
to those type of events.
Because well, I haven't been to many of those events, but that was my first APDA, and I had been a board member for like 2 minutes or so. I think I signed my paperwork there. But and it was, I mean, we had like over probably 120.
Yeah, well over 100 people.
Yeah, for Roanoke, that, I mean, yeah, that's a big
I
deal.
heard the population dropped by half when that happened.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, Roanoke's not the biggest city, but I mean, for Southwest, I mean, that was just
that's a lot of people.
And even the different representatives that were there for the tables and stuff were really, there was a, you know, a neurosurgeon, and another doctor was there, and physical therapist and occupational therapist, and I was very impressed. And a lot of that was it was APDA's sponsored, but also the support group in Roanoke really was really good with that. And so I actually got to meet all three of you guys were represented there. So hopefully I can have you out my way one day when I get my stuff going. And I'm really, really glad that I know you guys kind of had a little time crunch, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I is there anything for wrap up, everything or anything coming down the pike that you think is really cool that Boston Scientific is doing and that you guys want to promote?
Yeah, no, I think the big thing for us is just to try to get out there as much as possible and meet patients, and to make sure that patients are educated. We talked about it earlier, but we just want, like, the patient events like what you just talked about, we love going to, because we just like for people to make sure that they know their options and they're making great choices and educated decisions. And yeah, I mean, as far as coming down the pike, I think the big thing that we're super excited about are the two things that we mentioned, is the image guided technology that we've started over the past like year or two. It's really evolving really, really quickly, and it folds into this kind of AI theme that we talked about, is using intelligence, using AI to make informed decisions and to get to better clinical outcomes faster, because that's really what matters. We want symptom relief faster without having to guess, and that's really our goal.
Well, Sadie, you said something earlier that I just love this word. I don't hear it enough. Holistic.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like in our world, we have a neurologist, we have a primary, we have a physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, maybe a chiropractor, maybe an acupuncturist. There's just so much information that the word holistic needs to be done. Like, as much as I actually love my neurologist, and I'll speak extremely high of, we never talk about physical therapy. We never talk about occupational therapy because he's my neurologist.
It takes a village.
It's almost like I want to develop a portal, which I know won't work, but you just put it's a central portal for everyone in your care team that can, so you post what's going on and everyone can see it. And I know that will most likely never happen.
Oh, wow. That'd be something to invent. I mean, because I know with what is the app that you're using on your Apple Watch?
It's called Neuro RPM.
And that takes your symptoms and sends it to your doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, not yet. I get a monthly like spreadsheet that shows my symptoms for the month. And then what I do is, and here's a plug I like to tell people too, when you have a doctor's appointment, probably like 3-4 days before the appointment, send him a message in the portal, what's going on, what you want to talk about. So when you get to that meeting, you're ready to talk. You're not going to have a 5-minute conversation. If you get 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you're probably lucky. You don't want to spend half that time telling him what you could have told him through the portal, and make the most of your time there.
Yep.
That's why I send him everything. I have an appointment with him in 2 weeks, and I already got all the information that I'm going to send him ahead of time because he just likes me for that reason. We get along really well.
Yeah, take advantage of all the technology. Do you guys mind if I put name, email up on?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Feel free to use our names and emails. And the other thing that I always point people to is dbsandme.com. That's our website where we just try to educate, talk a little bit about DBS and a little bit about the technology we kind of glazed over today.
And that's the word and not the symbol.
Yep,
Yes.
It's the word. Yep,
Okay.
dbsandme.com.
Okay.
For those in Virginia, that's AND. Well, we said before we started, I want to reiterate, thank you. What we're trying to do here is just have these conversations to help educate people with Parkinson's, and no particular agenda, just bring somebody on and have a conversation. And I got to say, you guys met and highly exceeded that expectation.
Oh.
I think this has been one of the more informative sessions that we've had, and I just want to say thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, glad to come on, and thank you guys for having us.
Yeah,
and
thank you guys.
If y'all have any questions, anything, feel free to reach out. We're always here.
We're here.
You got it. Cool. Well, again, thank you very much. Have a great day. It was a pleasure
Really
speaking to both of you.
And thank you. And everybody, what I do is, besides the live stream, I post it on it takes me a couple of days, but on every Parkinson's group on Facebook, but it does go out live on YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, and now X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you are the first one that went on Twitter, so our Twitter account. So, but we do reach a lot of people, and I do get quite a few DMs, and so we reach more than we think we do. And then I also go through Buzzsprout, and they put it out on Apple and Castbox and all the streaming services and stuff like that. So it hits a lot of people. So I just wanted to thank you guys. And they were in Rochester, New York, Saturday. What was that? Somebody just put a message up. Were you guys in New York? Oh, or was that you, Tom?
No, I didn't put any message up.
No.
No.
Gary, one of our listeners.
Well, that's strange. I don't have a chat box going on.
Oh, okay. It's Gary Stenshorn. Oh, Trey, you were in Rochester.
Trey, were you in Rochester?
Were you in Rochester on Saturday?
Oh, no, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Was your doppelganger in Rochester on Saturday?
Yeah, maybe somebody that looks very much like me was.
Yeah, I heard George Clooney was up in Rochester.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one before, but I'll take it.
You got it. All right. Well, again, thank you very much. And now, since you didn't know the 2001 Odyssey, I'm so glad we had this time together. Any ideas? You
Yeah.
got to go ask your mother about that one. I'm so glad.
Okay, yeah, no.
I
will.
She'll-
When I come back, I'll be fully prepared for.
you youngins.
She's still with us, I believe, Carol Burnett. So
Yeah.
just,
Let's play Jeopardy for 3,000. What does this mean?
yeah. At the end of every show to say hi to her grandmother. So she would just let her
Aw.
hear.
Okay.
So that's what we say, till next time. And,
Okay.
Aw.
everybody, thank you. And
Thank you guys very much.
questions, I'm putting up on the comment, I'm putting their emails. You can email us at parkrightherepodcast.com at gmail.com, and also the Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. And thank you so much.
All right.
Well,
Take care,
next
bud.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Okay. And yeah, not yet. It says not yet.